This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIK.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the Soonerscoop.com studios, a Thursday, September 25th. And you had to wait on it, but here is the recruiting report. We'll be joined by Josh McQuistion here in a second from Houston HQ. Big day for Oklahoma. Picks up a pair of commitments on Thursday morning. Cooper Hackett, the 2027 offensive tackle from Fort Gibson, flips from Texas Tech after committing to the Red Raiders on August 30th, and he was followed basically minutes,
like 5 minutes.
5 minutes afterwards by 2027 offensive tackle Kaeden Penny out of Bixby, one of the better programs in the state of Oklahoma, maybe one of the best programs in the country, right? If you look at the high school top 25 rankings. Plenty to get into, though, on today's show. Before we bring in Josh McQuistion, let George Stoya tell you all about our good friends over at Harry's.
Yeah, I actually used Harry's this morning, Eddie. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't see it.
Well, I can smell you, and you smell lovely.
I smell lovely, but I also shaved everything. I keeping the mustache
Interesting.
today.
Okay, I like that. I had not noticed that.
Yeah, but I used Harry's this morning, and very smooth. I love their shaving cream, too, as well as some of the other stuff, the anti-shine stick that they sent me as well. So you can head over to harrys.com/SoonerScoop. For a limited time, our listeners can get Harry's trial set for only $8 plus a free gift at harrys.com/SoonerScoop. Just head over to harrys.com/SoonerScoop to receive our exclusive discount. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about it. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Like I said, I use Harry's literally every single day. It's a great product.
I like the mustache. That looks good. You need to stick with it. How does Erin like it? Has she seen it?
She laughed at it.
Okay.
So
all right. Well, then that's
I don't think we'll be keeping it very long. I'll be using Harry's probably again later today.
That's the sign of approval. Oklahoma picking up the commitments of Cooper Hackett and Kaeden Penny. Obviously, we'll bring Josh in here in momentarily, but we talked about the momentum, right?
Yeah.
You make some waves on the field. Somebody like a Cooper Hackett had been to Dorman multiple times for the Michigan game. He was back in town for the Auburn game. Oklahoma's 2027 class now a 4 quadrant. I was going to say duo, but that wouldn't have been right. 4-person recruiting class, now up to number 2 in the country behind Penn State. Obviously early in the process, but good to get, especially up front, right?
Yeah, and it's also you get 2 OK Preps guys.
No doubt.
I believe ranked 1 and 2 in the state.
1 and 2 in the state, and we've talked to the man, the myth, Josh McQuistion, many a times before about the 2027 class, and I think this is just going to be the start of things to come. But welcome in, Josh. A busy morning on the Crimson Corner with the pair of commitments of Cooper Hackett, Kaeden Penny.
Yeah, guys, this was one of these. I mean, we got word that things were kind of happening, kind of last night, and had a chance to talk with Cooper, and we can go into all of that. I will say Cooper did his buddy a solid and kind of kept the Kaeden Penny thing a little bit more quiet. You had heard rumors of it, but I wasn't nearly as sure about that one as I was Cooper, and put in the pick last night. But this is, guys, I was trying to think of it from a recruiting standpoint. I don't think there's been a better day for Bill Bedenbaugh. I mean, like you talk about 2 top 100 guys in the state, all the success he's had, all the guys, that whether they were highly recruited or not. Guys, the only one I can think of is Michael Fasusi, and the only reason I can even make that comparison is because Michael was a year ahead, and It was such a big win over Texas. No, you needed it so badly. But this is, guys, these are NFL guys. I mean, they have absolutely that sort of potential, and to land 2 of them in the same day within, like you guys said, 5 or 6 minutes of each other is just massive.
All right, Josh, let's start with the big one that popped first this morning. How about that? First come, first serve. Cooper Hackett, he commits to Oklahoma, flipping his commitment from his August 30th pledge to Texas Tech, 6'7", 250, 5-star, number 11 overall in the 2027 class in the industry rankings, number 3 offensive tackle, number 1 player in the state. I feel like we've talked about Cooper Hackett time and time again. There was some surprise when he committed originally to Joey McGuire and Texas Tech, but you talked to him last night. Just in terms of overall commitment, it sounds like this is ultimately what Cooper Hackett wanted to do in terms of staying in state, playing at Oklahoma, a place that he's grown up with an affinity for.
Yeah, we've got kind of a preliminary story for those who want to go read it up on the front page of Sooner Scoop. Once I'm done with this recruiting report, going to go write a little bit more because we talked for about 20 minutes last night. His mother talked to her, talked to Cooper himself, like so, pretty in depth on kind of all that's happened. And and I know our guy Steve Wiltfong talked to him, and Cooper was pretty honest, guys. I mean, I think this came down to what we talked about. Like, he just wanted to go to Oklahoma. Like, all the people that are jaded about NIL and, all the stuff in college football that has changed over the last decade, Cooper's not that guy. I mean, I think he picked Texas Tech to give his family some security and to know that he had an option there that could be, very beneficial to him and those kind of things. But I think at the end of the day, and he kind of hinted at the same thing in our conversation, is he's kind of betting on himself. Like, they hope he's going to go be a draft pick and that the difference in, what he makes at Texas Tech and Oklahoma will be beans to him, 5, 6, 7 years from now. So I just think this is a kid that he wanted to play for Bill Bedenbaugh. He loves Oklahoma. I mean, this is a guy that, like, oh, I liked Oklahoma. He loves OU. Like, it means something to him to play for OU. And I think he's the kind of guy that OU fans should absolutely embrace because he's living the dream that so many kids in Oklahoma grow up kind of hoping that they'll get to be part of.
Josh, obviously a great job by OU. We said it back when he committed to Texas Tech that OU wasn't out of it. But for them to flip him so quickly, I think is maybe a little bit of a surprise. But I wanted to ask you, just as Cooper as a player, how good is he? Like, what's his ceiling? Because you've been doing this a long time. I would assume he's up there in terms of one of the better prospects that you've covered, not only in the state of Oklahoma, but anywhere at that tackle position.
Yeah, guys. I mean, we've watched some really good ones in Oklahoma. Trent Williams, Lane Johnson. I mean, I think we all think Michael Fasusi's on a pretty special trajectory as well. But in the, again, for those who watch these and maybe aren't a member yet, first of all, go sign up. But I do a story every time there's commitment, and one of the questions I kind of run through is, where could this guy end up in the rankings? Cooper Hackett could be the number one player in 2027. Like, that is a legitimate possibility. Now, I'm not saying it's what I'd bet on. There's still a lot of ways to go, and there's a lot of great players in that class. It's a really good class. But, guys, you look at it, he is ranked well ahead of where Michael Fasusi was at the same point in Michael Fasusi's career. Trent Williams, we can go through the list. Like, there's a lot of guys that were overlooked, and you watch him on tape, and we talked about this when I went and saw him a few weeks ago, is how much more physical, how much more violent he was starting to play. It wasn't just me being there, and not to ever think that it was, but you watch the other games and watch him play. He is finishing with violence. Like, he is putting guys on their back. There was one, I think it was a scrimmage against Cassia Hall where even in a pass set, the guy goes up to try and, get his hand in the passing lane, and as soon as Cooper sees him kind of leap, he just buries the kid, puts him on his back, and you're like, yes, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see out of him, because the athletic traits, the frame, the length, that stuff's all there. Like, I don't have any concern about that ability. Really, the question to me is on what kind of timeline does Cooper start to fill out that frame? Because he's so big, guys, but he looks like a power forward. He's so long and he's so lean right now. But if you can get him to 320 and he stays healthy, he retains most of the athletic ability and the profile that he has, guys, he could be your next first-round draft pick on offensive line. There's no question about it to me. He is a special player, and frankly, he is. George, you didn't ask this question specifically, but he's the best offensive lineman from an upside perspective that I've ever seen in the state of Oklahoma. I think that is a completely fair thing to say.
25 years? That about
for
your career, Josh?
That, since
the last 25 years?
You're talking, and again, I wasn't working really at that point, but I saw plenty of Jamal Brown.
Sure.
You're going that far back with those kind of guys, and obviously Jamal's a special player, and actually beat the crap out of me in a middle school game once upon a time. So there's plenty of history there. But but Cooper, again, this is the year where I felt like it stopped being about upside, and you're starting to see him play like the talent says he can.
One of the many talents in this 2027 in-state class that we've talked about for better part of the last year, really, kind of leading into their junior season. On the flip side of that, Kaeden Penny also commits on Thursday morning. The offensive lineman out of Bixby High School, 6'4", 265, four-star, industry ranking 47 overall, number 34 in Rivals, the number 2 player in the state of Oklahoma in the 2027 class, Josh. And another guy that we feel like we've talked about for about the last year, maybe more, but Oklahoma finally breaks through into Bixby High School, one of the great programs in the state.
Yeah, guys, you think about all the success the Spartans have had, and I kind of talked about it in one of the stories I wrote about Kaeden, is the reality that Oklahoma hasn't landed a Bixby player, guys. They got a commitment from Luke Haas a couple of years ago. Obviously, that went sour with the whole Lincoln Riley change. So this is OU's first win at Bixby, and not to say that there's been a lot of close calls. There's been some guys that OU elected not to offer, or obviously missed out earlier this year on Brayden Presley. So there are it lies to you a little bit to see that this is the first guy from Bixby, but man, if you're going to pick a guy, this is that dude. Like, he is as good a prospect as Bixby has produced, in my opinion, in all of Lauren Montgomery's incredible run he's had with the Spartans. Speaking of Coach Montgomery, shows up right there on tape.
Love Coach at OL, too. I've always loved that.
He's just one of those guys. I don't think he could ever not be involved with it. But, guys, when I was doing the same story I was talking about with Cooper for the commit breakdown, it was my first chance to watch his junior tape, and man, he looks good. Like, he has really, like, I loved it. Like, he was, as a sophomore, he was a better player than Cooper was. He just, he's not 6'7", and he doesn't have some of the length and the athleticism and that kind of stuff. But man, you watch him, he is killing people. And I'm watching him play against Owasso and Sand Springs, good programs, and he's just killing people. Like, he looks. I couldn't have been more impressed with what I saw of his junior tape so far.
Now, Josh, is this a left tackle, right tackle type of situation with these two guys? Like, is this the future for Oklahoma? I mean, I would assume they're going to be blocking for Bo Bentley.
Not to forget, they have Luke Wilson currently in the 2027 class out of South Lake Carroll. We'll talk about maybe some other options. Would like bump inside maybe even for Kaeden Penny.
I guess, where do you see these two guys playing?
For me, I see Kaeden as a guard. And you look at, Oklahoma with all the counter stuff they love to do in pull guards, his athletic ability and, like, with how physical and violent he is with his hands, he picks up linebackers really well at the second level. There's a clip of him against Sand Springs where he basically it's not even a pull. He's just coming out, picking up a linebacker from the backside, and he basically gets himself out of position, but he's so freaking quick. He just kind of redirects and then shoves the guy, 3 yards away from the play. Like, it's really impressive to watch Kaeden Penny. And again, I think one of the things I like so much about him are his feet and his ability to kind of reset his hips. I mean, like, when you watch him get into a block and he needs to turn a guy, he can do it as quickly as any high school offensive lineman you'll see. Like, he really has that ability. And again, like I said, one of the clips I'm watching him go against Owasso, he's going against Taj Overton, a guy committed to Oklahoma State that we know OU wanted. So he's not doing this against nobodies. He's doing this against real competition, and he's dominating. So, I mean, again, I think if you said who's the best offensive lineman in the state of Oklahoma, I'd say it's Kaeden Penny. If you ask me who the best prospect is, I'd say it's Cooper Hackett. So Oklahoma's kind of getting the best of both worlds, and I don't want to minimize either one of them. Cooper Hackett's a good player right now. Kaeden Penny's a very good prospect, and they both have a lot of room to grow.
I think in totality of the boarding, got to give it up to Bill Beatenbow. I mean, I think that there's obviously been a lot of attention placed to the 2025 group that was head-weighed by Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje.
We've said on here, and Josh has pointed out, it's like you don't want to get in a situation like you were in 24 where all of a sudden you're having to dip into the portal a ton and kind of totally rebuild an offensive line. this way, like, and we'll talk about the 26 class here in a second, and maybe potentially adding a guy there on the offensive line. But the timing of this, if Fasusi and Foje turn out to be what you want them to be, all of a sudden you got Cooper Hackett and Kaeden Penny walking in right behind him.
Josh, just in terms of the job that Bill Beatabo has done here in this 2027 group, obviously it's a fantastic start when you throw in Luke Wilson out of South Lake Carroll as well.
Well, and guys, you want to be super clear about this because, like I said, earlier, particularly with Cooper, Kaeden, I haven't had a full kind of breakdown and sit down with, so I'm not going to pretend I know exactly what motivated him. For Cooper Hackett, this is Bill Beatabo. He wants to play for Bill Beatabo. So there's, I don't want there to be any this is an NIL thing or OU came in and nothing changed from OU's perspective. I honestly, and I know a lot of people turned it into, Cooper, why would he commit? I think Cooper committed and then realized I don't care about some of this stuff. I just want to go to Oklahoma. I want to go play there. So I think that really almost pushed, I don't know if he commits to Tech as early as he did, if he didn't commit to Tech as early as he did, if he's even part of Oklahoma's class right now. I think it kind of opened his eyes to, oh no, that's not what I want. We all have done it. It's buyer's remorse, basically. That's not, I now know what I want because I did something I didn't want to. So I think that's really true. But yeah, Bill deserves an absolute ton of credit. And guys, what I wanted to say, what you're seeing, and it started in that 25 class with Fasusi and Foje, look at the body types that Oklahoma's starting to bring in on the offensive line. These are guys that look like or, have the ability to project to SEC offensive linemen. It's not that guy's a good player, but he's a little undersized. There's nobody in Oklahoma's class these last few years that you would say that about. These are big-bodied, super athletic guys that either just need to add some weight to a big frame or are already, like Ryan Foje. You guys talk about all the time, seeing him and just kind of marvel at how big he has become.
That kind of leads into, let's just stick in 2027 because Oklahoma's coming off of a massive recruiting weekend, obviously, but there have been some RPMs that have started to roll in for the 2027 group as well, and certainly off to a great start. But Jackson Roper, another name that we have talked about, he came in, camped with Oklahoma over the summer. Certainly seems like Oklahoma's doing something right with the Cherry Creek, Colorado product.
Oh, there's no question. And I think Oklahoma had done such good groundwork before he even came to camp. And he there was a, kind of like I'm talking about with Cooper, a very real respect for Bill Beatabo and, kind of what his production's been, because he's one of those guys. He works with, 6-0 and Matt McChesney and those guys, that same group that Deacon Schmidt works with and Josh Bates was from. So there's a lot of respect between McChesney and Bill Beatabo. So I think that really kind of gave OU an easy foot in the door. And I know, like you mentioned, Eddie, our guy Steve Wiltfong has put in a prediction for Jackson Roper at Oklahoma. I talked to Jackson. He visited for the Michigan game, for those watching and don't know, and he loved it. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like anything went wrong. I think he really wants to be deliberate about his decision. He doesn't want to rush into anything. But to me, there's no question. I think Oklahoma's the clear leader for him right now. I think it would take something pretty big to change his story. And again, guys, if you're telling me that Oklahoma starts their four-man, however big the offensive line class ends up being, if it starts with Luke Wilson, Kaeden Penny, Cooper Hackett, and Jackson Roper, I don't really care what you add beyond that. You have got four legit guys there that have major offers, a lot of attention. There's no, we're going to take, a flyer on this guy or see what happens with that guy. These are legit guys that were early targets for Oklahoma.
I was about to say, Josh, are you surprised at all how quickly, obviously Jackson Roper hasn't committed or anything, but how quickly kind of this offensive line class in particular is kind of coming together for Oklahoma in 27?
I think, and again, George, it kind of lends to what we talked about when we would say, 2027 could be really good. Yeah. It's because the O-line class is so good in the state. And again, I wouldn't have predicted 3 or 4 months ago that we'd be here with Cooper Hackett. And guys, I think I mentioned this maybe on the, I don't know if it was the pod or somewhere recently, where I was like, I actually think Kaeden Penny might be a little closer to things than Cooper Hackett is. So I don't know if I'm as surprised about him, But Cooper to flip and do all that he's done, like that's a lot of work in a short amount of time. But yeah, I am, because usually O linemen, especially in this NIL era where you're seeing guys, the money figures kind of keep climbing until somebody says when. I think there's usually a little more patience. You usually see it run out until the spring. But again, with Cooper, I'd be shocked if anything comes of Cooper. You talk to Luke Wilson, that dude sounds like the most committed guy on planet Earth. I mean, he's recruiting teammates. He's trying to flip one teammate from Michigan, his Michigan commitment. So there's a lot happening there that makes you think like, okay, they're in pretty good shape here. And then, you add in the DeMar DeZern kid, Damari DeZern, I think is how you say it. I can't get his name right. From California, guys, I mean, they've got 3 top 80 players in the Rivals industry rankings right now. Like, they don't have that in 2026. I don't think they had that in 2025, doing it off the top of my head real quick. So it's been a few years, and they're already off to just an unbelievable start in 27.
It certainly seems like that momentum that we had talked about, just going out and doing it on the field. And obviously, when you see what Oklahoma's putting out there defensively, it looks like a group you'd want to be a part of. That brings us to 2027 edge rusher Crew Jones, who it certainly sounds like another guy out of Millville, Utah, another top 300 guy. Certainly seems like Brent Venables, as well as Nate Dreiling or Miguel Chavis, has certainly hit all the right notes.
Yeah, I mean, same song, new verse with Miguel Chavis here, guys. He just does an unbelievable job connecting with kids. And guys, you remember when Crew camped a couple summers ago, he was the guy we saw run around with Miguel Chavis well after practice and hanging. I'm like, there really seemed to be a good connection between Crew, his father, and Miguel, and that's something Crew has talked about when we've spoken. I'll admit I was surprised at this, this prediction from Steve, but at the end result, I don't think it's like that hard to believe. And the thing I'll also say, guys, when we're talking about building momentum in 2027, a year and a half ago, we came at this differently. The commitment of Zane Rowe could help them with Crew Jones. They're friends. They've known each other. They played, some I think U14 stuff together, the kind of the FBU type stuff. They've done some of that stuff since they were growing up, and they know each other well. Now, maybe the table's turning. It's Crew Jones helping Oklahoma recruit Zane Rowe. But guys, I mean, if those two are your defensive ends class and this offensive line group that we're talking about, guys, I don't see much changing as far as Oklahoma starting to project really well along the line of scrimmage in the years to come.
Are we done with 27, or do we have more?
Well, just one more.
Okay,
just one more in 2027, because Jalen Brewster has set his commitment date. Maybe you get and you got to give a little bit in the world of recruiting. Does it sound like Texas Tech might be the winner for the services of one of the top defensive linemen in the country out of Cedar Hill High School in the DFW area?
That's absolutely the bet here. I think that's, I know Steve has put a prediction in. Sam Spiegelman's put a prediction in. I think basically I just haven't done it yet. I think we all kind of expect this to be Texas Tech. Now, what I will say, Cooper is something of an indicator of other stuff. And that's not to say that Texas Tech's not going to end up with a good class. They will. But, they've got the Guyton kid from Georgia that I know is still going on trips to UGA and seeing some other places. So the Tech commitments – I know for OU fans, like they see a commitment in the way that Brent handles these things with the turning your chip in and you're not going on any other visits. That's very much not what Tech does. They're you take visits. From what I gathered, they were never overly pressurized about Cooper going to Oklahoma. They're pretty relaxed about that stuff. So I will see. But I would be surprised if Todd Bates or anybody at Oklahoma treats that as any sort of deterrent in their pursuit of Jalen Brewster. They're going to keep trying to do that, still try to make something happen there. I wouldn't be shocked at all if later this year Jalen Brewster shows up in an OU game, whether it's, as Texas's guest in Dallas or the LSU game, whatever it may be. I would bet he shows up again in Norman at some point or another. But as far as the commitment, I think that's likely to be Texas Tech. Now, I will say, unlike Cooper, where I said, hey, I don't think it means a lot, you have to remember Joey McGuire made his bones at Cedar Hill and is kind of a legend at that program. So he means something, I'm sure, to Jalen Brewster. And, all that. And again, Joey's an incredible recruiter. He's an incredible guy. Like, there is a lot to like, but there's no question that Texas Tech has gone from kind of like some of these other recruitments we've seen where we didn't know how involved they were to, oh, man, he's going to go to Texas Tech in a really short amount of time.
Josh, with that, I wanted to ask just how good of a class can this be in 2027 for OU? Like I think, Eddie, you said they're number two right now. I know it's super early. They got to figure out quarterback, obviously, when they missed out on Peyton Houston. I don't know if they circle back there, but just what's the ceiling for this 2027 class?
This can be a top 5 class. Like it has that sort of potential. You need to, finish up with a few of these other guys in state that we know are high value. Maybe you could steal a Titus Hawk. Guys, does that ever look more possible than now with all that's going on at Oklahoma State and how that seems off? Like that seems like an open door for Oklahoma right now. And I know he was at Auburn. I'm almost certain he was at Michigan. You go get a guy like Case Alexander at Washington who was at both home games, at both the marquee home games so far. So I think there is, again, that's what helps so much is you don't have to go and beat Texas and Texas for every guy or go to California and beat USC for every guy. You have some in-state ability to just go get this. And guys, maybe for the first time in a long time, Oklahoma's like not having to fight like a brutal battle in the state of Oklahoma just to keep one of their own guys. Like we've seen that for years and years where Oklahoma would get the guy, but they had to run it out a long ways. I mean, Gentry Williams is a good example. Oklahoma had to fight that for a long time, and that's not anything on Gentry. He's just one of many. But it's a really nice start. And again, I was talking to Cooper about this last night. Guys, Cooper is 100% about to become the guy in 27 as far as recruiting. He is going to be on the phone. He is very excited to get started recruiting his class.
It's interesting. Sometimes you see guys coming from smaller towns or not like from the metro area that a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved. Oklahoma needs somebody like that to kind of be the ringleader of the group, though, at 4 right now. Penn State, number 1 in the team rankings. Oklahoma 2, Miami 3, Ohio State 4. Some of the, likely neighborhood fellows. And then Nebraska, number 5 right now in the 2027 rankings. So Oklahoma gets Cooper Hackett, Kaeden Penny, and we will kind of move over to 2026 because there's obviously some news out there just in terms of a local product in Daniel McMorris. But before we get to Daniel McMorris picking up an Oklahoma offer, let us tell you about our good friends over at homefieldapparel.com. That is homefieldapparel.com, the premium collegiate apparel brand based out of Indianapolis. We've told you about them before. The officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs, very comfortable for your game day setting. Homefieldapparel.com. You can't miss it. I know that George Stoya probably already getting some stocking stuffers for the Stoya family.
Definitely.
No spoilers, though. Don't give any spoilers.
I won't, but I know they got a lot of stuff last year from Home Field. So.
I dream of the day that I can be wearing a crew neck sweatshirt again. I know. In the heat of Oklahoma. The
hot.
irony, I say that as I'm wearing a vest today. I'm a dumbass. Go to homefieldapparel.com, premium collegiate apparel based out of Indianapolis. Thank you to Home Field. All right, we'll bring Josh McCuistion back in after a quick timeout. That was like when the band plays and you just didn't see the band. I heard it in my head. Daniel McMorris, 2026 Oklahoma or Norman, Oklahoma product. Norman North High School. He does pick up the offer, Josh, and I think this is something that we talked about over the last couple of weeks, just in terms of, okay, are they going to make a move in the 2026 class at offensive tackle? He finally does pick up the offer. We talked about him on the Unofficial 40 podcast on Wednesday, but certainly seems like it's going to be when, not if he commits to Oklahoma.
That's my read on it, because when you look at it, I kind of am surprised, and I've talked about this before, that he hasn't garnered more attention. Like there aren't more schools that have kind of missed out on a guy here, missed out on a guy there. But I think the nice thing about this is, because that was going to happen sooner or later, but now Oklahoma's come in. I don't think anybody's going to come along that's going to say, yeah, we're going to go beat Oklahoma for an Oklahoma fan from Norman. Like I think a lot of schools are just going to be like, you know what, that's not worth the fight. We're not going to do that. He's talking about trips to Cal, Tulsa, Northwestern, and I think he'll take one or two of those. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all if he goes and sees Cal. If nothing else, to just watch JSK throw the ball around. That
Sure.
dude is fun to watch. And then Northwestern, I wouldn't mind seeing a game in that practice facility, stadium. I don't know what you want to call it, but how often do you get an opportunity like that just right on the lake?
Maybe just not in late October, right?
Yeah, I'd get it in quick.
The wind blowing
Get
it off
in
Lake
before it gets real
Michigan.
bad. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think Oklahoma's in really strong shape here. We talked about this on the pod a little bit yesterday. I think Texas Tech is kind of faded on this a little bit, partly probably because kind of the same thing. Like, what do we really want to fight Oklahoma and Norman for a kid that it matters to? You know, for Cooper, they already had the commitment. I think they felt like, you know, they kind of had their foot in the door. With Daniel, he had multiple opportunities to commit to Texas Tech, and he just never quite pulled the trigger. And I think they read that as kind of a tell. And, you know, again, that's me guessing a little bit at this, but I think Oklahoma's in a really good spot. And again, I'm not terribly surprised, guys. This is something he is one of the rare guys when I do my commitment predictions, first Friday of each month. I've never taken him off my list because I just thought, I was like, this offer is going to happen. They need another tackle to go along with Deacon Schmidt. And I thought he would be the guy. He made a ton of sense. And he's very much like Cooper. He needs time. You're going to have to let him fill out his frame. But I see just a lot of potential here. And he's a kid that, under a guy like Bill, if he'll put in the work, there is a lot of upside for this to be a guy we look back on 4 years from now and say, well, that's unbelievable that OU could wait as long as they did and still get him.
Josh, if they are able to get Daniel McMorris, what do you think of just this 2026 offensive line class? I know we kind of just talked about the 27 group and how special it could be. Do you feel like this 26 group is maybe a little bit underrated, or a group that I guess needs some more time?
I in general, like I do. Like, I mean, it's not like 25 where you've got Fasusi and Foje where you're like, well, right situation, those guys are going to play. But I like Noah Best. I think Noah Best is a multi-year starter for Oklahoma. I think he's going to be a really good player, super physical. He is, guys, if I could say anything about Fasusi and Foje, they were a little bit of a deviation from normal Bill Bedenbow guys. Noah Best, right down his type of guy. Wants to mix it up, wants to play in a phone booth, wants to beat the life out of you if he can do it. Like, he really one of those guys that he's an offensive lineman that loves being an offensive lineman. And I would say similarly of Deacon Schmidt. Again, like I said earlier, he's a Matt McChesney guy. Those guys are physical. They're strong with their hands. They're going to be violent. Like that's very much, something that Matt, I don't know if he only selects guys that have that temperament or if that's something he just beats into their head, but they play a certain style of football, and Deacon's that kind of guy. And guys, I know there was some skepticism when Jim Nagy went on and said, hey, we've got this guy as high on our board as anybody else. I'm telling you, that's a fact. They love Deacon Schmidt. They think he is special and going to be a difference maker. So then you add a guy like Daniel McMorris, who's more of an upside play, a project a little bit, and you can give him some time to grow into it with, like I said, with Deacon Schmidt, who's going to be more college ready. You've got Michael Fasusi returning. You've got Logan Howland. Like, he doesn't have to step in and do anything. He can take time, get on that training table, add the weight he needs to add, get bigger, get stronger, do all that stuff. If you told me like in 27, 28, he's a foundational starter on that offensive lineman, I don't think that's crazy. Like, I just think he's going to need time.
Last week, Josh, you went over to Lafayette, Louisiana. You caught up with Brayden Allen, who was in town this past weekend for the Auburn game. He's currently committed to Tulane. You can watch the full interview of Brayden talking about his relationship with Emmett Jones in Oklahoma and his recruitment that's seemingly blown up here over the last couple of months since his commitment to Tulane. But where do things stand with the wide receiver, Brayden Allen, and kind of the timeline in terms of, I know he has a Colorado visit ahead. Certainly seems like Oklahoma made an impression and maybe possibly could get him in the 2026 class.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma is in a really good spot. He loved his visit. I think he and Emmett Jones just click really well. And again, I think he appreciates that even if Oklahoma didn't offer him until the summer, there was always contact. Like Emmett Jones made it clear, we like you, we're very interested very early on, rather than, hey, we missed out on some guys, now we're interested kind of thing. So I think that means something to him. And I do, when I went to see him and talk with him, like you could just tell that I think it's a little bit of a tug of war for him, like where he feels a lot of comfort with Tulane. He wanted to commit there early so he wouldn't have to mess with all this, and then he's kind of watched his recruiting blow up over the summer. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, he's picked up some bigger offers. But at the same time, I think he knows there's an opportunity to play in the SEC, and he's a Louisiana kid, and he knows how much that means. I think if Tulane's in the SEC, this could be a very different conversation. I just think it's going to be tough for him to tell Oklahoma no at the end of the day.
Josh, do you have any sort of timeline on when he might, if he does flip, is this one of those situations where if it continues to drag out, maybe the chances go down? Like, is there some sort of, I guess, timeline on his decision?
I think with him, it's really going to come down to what Oklahoma's situation looks like. Like, are they – because, guys, we've talked about this a few places. Like, there is a very real world where Oklahoma is starting to trend in a very good direction for a guy like Davian Gross that's committed to Florida. I don't think he wants to rush, but he does want to take a couple more officials. I would guess those are out of the way in the next couple of weeks. Like, obviously, we know Colorado, and he's working on another one. And I literally told you this every time I've talked to you. I can't remember who the second one is. Like, he told me it's in the interview. I just cannot process it in my brain for some reason. I think once those two officials are done, I think he's done pretty quickly thereafter. I don't think he wants to spend a lot of time. Like I said, he told me in that interview, I committed to Tulane so I wouldn't have to think about this during my season. I don't think that's what he wants to do. And, guys, he plays for a school that competes for state titles. Like, he wants into December to be focused on winning a state championship and moving on, and where he's going to be playing his college ball to kind of be a secondary thought. So I think this is a kid that makes a lot of sense. You talk to people that know Louisiana football, they think he is wildly underrated. They really like him a lot. I will say the guy that he, and I know you guys didn't ask, but just kind of for some.
I was going to though. So go ahead.
Okay. Oh, my long-windedness wins again. The guy he reminds me of is Joaquin Iglesias. Like that same kind of a unique body type. You don't see it at receiver a lot. Really long arms, like crazy long arms. Like you can watch it in some of the videos. Like he, when he's doing drills and he's just kind of bent over, you're like, dude, his hands are touching his knees. Like it's crazy. So he's got a huge catch radius. He's got more burst than you think he does. People have looked at his track times and kind of like, I don't know if he can run. I watched him run with some guys from Louisiana, a pretty decent program with one DB in particular that's got, like LSU, got some big-time offers, and he looked like he had plenty of burst to run by some of those guys. So I see a lot to like here. I just wonder with Oklahoma getting Xavier Okafaleze, Eddie.
Got it. You got it.
But I think with him having Daniel Odom, I guess I would think they want 4 in this class, and Brayden Allen and Davian Gross would make a ton of sense because there's not a lot of overlap. Those are 4. I would say Xavier and Daniel are much more similar as players than either Brayden Allen and Davian Gross. So I don't think you have to worry about, well, is this guy going to be stepping on this guy's toes? I think they're different types. And if you're okay with having ZZ and Daniel Odom together, then the other two shouldn't have any impact.
Stay in the 2026 class. You talked about Miguel Chavis and the momentum that he's continued on at the defensive end position. Jacob Curry, let's talk linebacker. Nate Dreiling out of Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, Nice High School. Same high school as Tim Tebow? Is that Nice High School? 6'1", 200, Rivals 300 linebacker. Just certainly seems like, or just outside, I guess. Either way, very good linebacker. Certainly seems like Oklahoma has made an impression on Jacob Curry.
Absolutely. And Jacob is a guy, he doesn't usually like to do phone interviews, so I have to send him a series of questions and then he'll get back to me kind of on his own time. Haven't gotten all my answers back yet, so I'm waiting for some of it. But there's no doubt. I mean, like, if he gets down to a top 3 or something, like, on his commitment day and there's hats on the table, I'll be stunned if Oklahoma's not one of those hats. Like, I think he likes the way Oklahoma's recruited him. He likes Nate Dreiling a lot. Like I said, a couple weeks ago, Nate Dreiling at Arkansas State was his first offer. So I think that means a lot to him that he kind of has, that coach, even before he was at Oklahoma, he believed in me kind of thing. And this is a guy that I can't say it enough. When he was offered, I had OU fans that were like, this guy, like, he's a 3-star U and the whole thing. And now, like, he's starting to kind of blow up, and Ohio State's offered him, and, Florida State. That's probably, along with Ohio State, just because Ohio State is Ohio State, Florida State went to his game last Thursday. He played on a Thursday, and that's why he could take that trip to Oklahoma. Mike Norvell goes to his high school game on Thursday night. They offer him, and it sounds like he might take an official to Florida State. Now, that's obviously much closer. Mm-hmm. We'll see what that looks like. That could change the math on this a little bit. But I definitely do like where Oklahoma is, and I know, there's predictions in for him. There are certainly people that think Oklahoma's going to win this, and our guy Steve Wiltfong put one in earlier this week. So we'll watch it, but he's another one of those guys I talk about a lot that feels like a fit for Oklahoma. Like he feel like, from a personality standpoint, he seems like the right type of guy for OU.
I guess I just don't understand why people would like. I know Nate Dreiling made this offer, but like anybody that's questioning an offer at linebacker that Brent Venables is signing off on, like, I just don't understand. I guess at this point.
Well, think of the brain trust at that position, guys. We've talked about it. Not only is it Brent, you've got James Skalski, you've got Rufus Alexander. I mean, you've got guys that know the position. If they all are like, yeah, we're in. I mean, we know the buck stops with Brent. It's Brent's call, ultimately, alongside Nate Dreiling. But I'm with you. Like, there are certain positions on this team when a guy says that dude can play, I'm like, I don't need to know a lot more. Yeah. Todd Bates tells me a guy can play D-tackle. Cool, man. Done. Like, no problem.
I'm sure that if you look long enough, you could find people that want to break down Barry Bonds' swing and say that there had some holes in one of the greatest hitters of all time. Steroids did help, but I support that and let him into the Hall. Different rant, different day. Let's stick with just a couple more notables before we get out of here, Josh. Let's start with Quentin Hale out of California, wide receiver, 2027 class. Certainly seems like Oklahoma has hit some notes with a 6'3", 175 receiver out of Los Angeles Cathedral High School.
Absolutely. And this is, I've talked about this before. Guy I'm really high on. Like, I think he's number 58 in the Rivals industry rankings, and I think that may be undercooking it a little bit. Like, I think he is really good. He's a big, smooth receiver. Has speed, he can change direction really well for a guy, like you said, at 6'3". I mean, look at him here. Like, just look at him accelerate, and he's in and out of cuts there. He is, I think he's pretty special. And like I've said before, he is a guy that's usually kind of a few words. You don't get a lot from him. I can't always read much, but yeah, I mean, like, look at some of this stuff he's doing here. I just love him on tape. That's I usually see that from a guy that's 5'11", to have that level of balance and the quickness to change direction, all that stuff. But talking to him after the Auburn trip, he glowed a little bit. Like, you could tell how much he just loved the environment. He loved being around the players. I think it was one of the opportunities where he really got to be in the locker room and talk to the players a little bit and kind of get a feel for what the environment is in Norman. And man, he couldn't have had better things to say about what he saw.
Two more items to get through, and they all, I guess, sit around in the same county at Oklahoma, Payne County to be exact. 2028 wide receiver athlete David Thomas, somebody that I know that you had talked about and going and seeing Stillwater during the spring period, but certainly seems like Oklahoma's making inroads early in his recruitment, being a 2028 product.
Yeah, and this is a guy, he's the number one guy in 2028. We just talked about Cooper Hackett. David Thomas is the next guy up in kind of that number one spot. Now there's good competition in 28. There'll be several guys that kind of compete for that title, but this is a guy that, guys, he hadn't played his first game at Stillwater, and you were hearing people like, oh, this guy's different. Like this guy he's going to be unbelievable. People were talking about him as like an 8th grader. And, you get that at Union, Jinx sometimes, but Stillwater, that's not usually the way that goes. But he's a really mature kid. Like, he gets what he's doing. But at the same time, like, every time I see him making plays, it's against the Unions. It's against, big-time competition. This isn't a guy that's beaten up on, some programs that, frankly, don't have any business on the field with Stillwater. He does this against good teams. Again, look at that acceleration, how well he separates when he's in traffic. Like, there's so much to work with here. And, you talk about his father is a staffer at Oklahoma State, so you kind of wondered, would that be too much to overcome? But with what's going on in Oklahoma State, that seems, again, like I mentioned earlier, kind of like a door that maybe is open a little bit right now. And I just happen to think that Oklahoma has a good chance here, as he's made multiple trips to Norman and, been down, I think, 3 times since the spring. So, again, it's not like it's a far drive, but we've seen plenty of good Stillwater players that never gave Norman much time.
Sure.
I feel like Stillwater always has some guys. That's a good program.
No doubt. Going all the way back to the 90s with the Holidays. And they've been really good, and they've been extremely good here over the last couple of years, playing in state championships. In fact, I think was it Gage or Gunner that won a state championship with Stillwater a couple of years ago?
I think it was Gunner.
I was at the game. I should know that. Thoughts and prayers with the Gundies right now. Just in terms of, and I guess this kind of leads into the final question that we wanted to throw at you. Oklahoma State, obviously, they make the coaching change here during the midseason or the early portions of the season, not even out of September. Does Oklahoma round back with a Kaeden Jones that decommitted, Jinx High School product, Kiwan's son that played at Oklahoma, Aiden Martin, another name that decommitted from that 2026 Oklahoma State class? Any thoughts on Oklahoma getting back involved with any of those guys?
Kaeden obviously is the one everybody will want to talk about because of, like you mentioned, Eddie, the connections with Kiwan. And, there was, guys, we're 6 months removed from Kaeden feeling like a certainty in Oklahoma's 2026 class. It just didn't play out that way, and that's fine. But my impression is Oklahoma felt they needed one running back in this class. They've got their guy into Zephan Walker. They really like him. I mean, I'm not going to rule anything out. This is recruiting. Stuff can happen, but there's nothing about their activity or anything I've seen that tells me that's probably what's going to happen. I think he's probably going to end up just somewhere else. I know Kansas was really hard after him before Oklahoma State. I could see that making a lot of sense, and putting him, in that offense and some of the stuff they do, he could have a really nice career at Lawrence. So the guy that I do think is interesting, it's kind of along the same lines as Daniel McMorris, is Aiden Martin, just because I think, even with McMorris, you're a little light. We talked about earlier. If you lay him at McMorris, that's 3 offensive line commitments. For me, at a place like Oklahoma, I want 4 or 5 every year, just like clockwork, no exceptions. And Aiden Martin's a guy, big physical dude. I had a chance to see him play against Cooper Hackett. He moves his feet pretty well. I think he's a guard at the college level in all likelihood, but you move him inside the guard, and a guy that's a good athlete at tackle becomes a really good one. And, let him, get on a weight program and, like, really get bigger and stronger. And he's not like a guy carrying around a ton of bad weight or anything, but just let him kind of mature and develop. And I could see Aiden Martin being a really good player. I've liked him. He's in my, top 10 in the state. I thought it was an evaluation where Oklahoma State did a really good job to go out and get him early on and focus on him. And I haven't heard anything to tell me OU's moving in that direction, but it's certainly not one I would think is a mistake. And, to move away from OK Preps, I know we need to get out of here. But another guy I really like in that class is the Danny Beal kid, the defensive lineman from Arkansas. I think he's a really good player, big, physical, kind of pure one-tech, zero guy that can hold up and be super violent, but at the same time is a good athlete. Now, Oklahoma, I believe, offered him early, but never seemed like they were that involved. So I don't know if they found something that just doesn't fit them or whatever it is. But from a pure talent standpoint, he's a guy that would make a ton of sense for OU.
All right, very interesting. Big day for Oklahoma here on the recruiting report, though. Again, they get the commitments. They flip the commitment of Cooper Hackett from Texas Tech, get the commitment of Kaeden Penny, and 2027 is off and rolling. Plenty of coverage to come on both of those commitments, what it means for Oklahoma moving forward, as we kind of outlined here in the program today. And I would also just say, before we get out of here, DeStephen Walker, I saw him on Saturday during the Auburn game. All the commits were kind of hanging out together in the south end zone. A lot bigger than I thought.
Big dude.
Kind of like a Tory Blaylock type look from what I thought, at least. So very good. A lot of positive momentum right now. It feels weird outside of the Mateer news, but certainly we'll talk to some of the players, by the way, on Thursday on Today. So we'll be back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel breaking down everything that Brent Venables had to say. Obviously, he'll talk about John Mateer for the, I guess, first real time in front of the media outside of the teleconference on Wednesday, as well as other items as Oklahoma goes into the bye week. Josh, we appreciate it. George, thank you for coming to work. And, of course, thank you to myself. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.